Nehru University in 2001. Her doctorate, awarded in 2011, is in the field of knowledge representation in artificial intelligence. She has served in the field of education for over 19 years and is currently in the service at National Institute of Technology, Kurukshetra, which is institution of national importance. Dr. Jain has authorized and co-authored over 100 publications, including books. Her current research interests are knowledge management and analytics, the semantic web, ontological engineering, and intelligent systems. She is currently working towards solving the interoperability problem generated by initiative in the Internet of Things, big data, and cloud computing. Dr. Jain has supervised two doctoral scholars who were now pursuing their postdoctoral studies, one in Spain and the other in Germany. Currently, she is guiding 15 students for their master's and doctoral research work in the area of knowledge representation. She serves as a reviewer for journals published by IEEE, Elsevier, and Springer. She has been involved as a program and steering committee member at many prestigious conferences in India and abroad. She has two funded research projects, one ongoing funded by CSIR TICIP 3 worth 2.58 lakhs and the other completed funded by the Defense Research and Development Organization worth 40 lakhs. She applied for a patent in November 2019. Dr. Jain has held various administrative positions at the department and institute level in her career, like head of the department, member of research degree committee, and center in charge examinations. She has continuously supervised DAAD interns from different universities of Germany and many interns from India every summer. She works in collaboration with various researchers across the globe, including in Germany, Australia, Malaysia, the USA, and Romania. She has organized various challenges, conferences, and workshops, including the National Information Technology Conference, the Global Initiative of Academic Networks by the Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India, the International Conference on Smart Computing and Communication, the International Conference on Advanced Communication and Computational Technologies, and International Conference on Eco-Friendly Computing and Communication Systems. She is a member of IEEE, ACM, CSI, IAENG, and the IACSIT. Dr. Jain is highly interested in the worldwide collaborations and is seeking scholars and interns for her research group. We are very glad to have you here with us, ma'am, and I hope you would definitely find some more interns from this crowd too. We heartily welcome you, ma'am. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Is my screen visible to the audience?
Yes, madam, it is visible.
Okay, so I hope all the participants have already joined, so I can start.
Yes, madam, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. So today I'm here to speak about something about semantic technologies. The FDP is about the advancements in artificial intelligence and also robotics. So I will be speaking about artificial intelligence, how is it going around in today's scenario, and how semantic technologies play a role into it. So as I've already been introduced so well, I'm Sarika Jain from NIT Kurukshetra, and my talk today is about present and future of semantic technologies. Today, AI seems to be a buzzword for everyone, from Elon Musk to Kissinger and from Google to Facebook. However, since 2012, only one tool or technique is floating, and there is a subtle difference but between recognizing the syllables in your sentence, what deep learning does, and the understanding the meaning in your sentence. There is a difference between the two. For example, your Google Assistant. it may be good at switching off your lights by saying Alexa good night, or Alexa also, but not for making meaningful conversations. Actually, deep learning models are still not able to capture the richness of the human mind, the richness of the richness that is required by the human conversation, and human mind possesses it. So DL models are still not able to capture that richness. This is what the talk is mainly about. So I will be starting from the various statistical models and focusing upon the hybrid of the two, that is the statistical and the symbolic approaches. Then I will look into semantic technologies as the enabler for the hybrid approaches, knowledge graphs, and various other semantic technologies. I will be providing a brief overview and introduction of the same. You might have heard of all these laureates in their field: Andrew Ng, Geoffrey Hilton, Dilip George, Demis Hassabis, the co-founder of DeepMind. All of them have talked about the statistical approaches and deep learning, that it is too good. See, and what Andrew says, he says that I've never seen an algorithm knock over benchmarks like deep learning. So these are some of the thoughts of some of the researchers. Geoffrey says that there are no theoretical limitations in deep learning. Dilip says that to help humanity thrive more than any invention. Similarly, from DeepMind, Demis says that for a very long time, it will be a complementary tool. Deep learning algorithms will remain as complementary tool. But to emphasize, it is Gary Marcus, the CEO and founder of Robust AI. What he says is, deep learning is, yes, a terrific tool, but for some kinds of problems, particularly those involving perceptual classification, recognizing syllables and objects, but also not a panacea. It cannot solve hell lot of every problem that a human mind can do. So deep learning is not a universal solvent, but yes, it is only a tool as there are other tools. The 5 key ingredients for the statistical models, mainly machine learning, are lots and lots of data it requires. Hello?
Madam, please proceed, madam.
Okay. It requires lots and lots of data. The models have to be very flexible. Enough computing power is required. Powerful priors, that is, certain clues are required that can defeat the famous curse of dimensionality. And of course, the computationally efficient inference is to be there. Let us see from where do we get the 5 ingredients. Yes, Facebook and Google provide massive amount of data. Massive parallelization is there. High processor power is already available. So billions of AI jobs are always there. So all happy. For curse of dimensionality, compositionality helps solve this problem. How does it do it? It is not able to, truly speaking, it is not able to solve the problem, but yes, it bypasses this dimensionality problem. How does it do it? Using distributed representations and the deep learning architectures, the DL models came. So let us see how the different AI disciplines are different from each other, and how the different parts of a certain AI discipline relate to each other. Let us see here. The first one is rule-based systems, completely different from the all 3 statistical models that we have listed here. The rule-based systems, in these systems, knowledge is provided by the experts. Complete knowledge is codified by the experts, and they work based upon the rules which have been written by the experts. While from 1980s, we switched to classical machine learning, and truly speaking, we never turned back to rule-based systems or the expert systems. The features in a classical machine learning algorithm are manually designed, and a generic classifier is used to obtain the output. Everybody knows that. Then came representation learning, where we design the features, but automatically. These features are also automatically discovered from data. Look, the shaded portion. The shaded boxes are indicating the components that are able to learn from data. In classical machine learning, you see, mapping from features is learning, while in representation learning, even the features are also automatically discovered from the data. As you go to the deep DL algorithms, you have multiple level of features. That is the major difference. Deep learning is very good at learning, as I've already said, and various researchers keep on saying the same, but in a very static world and for executing only the low-level patterns. Plus, it is to be fed with a lots of data. This is the basic nature of the statistical models. So I say that more deep you go in a DL model, more intelligent you get, but of course you get more black. This that as you go more deep to get better accuracy, it becomes more black. When I say more black, what do I mean? More black means that you are not able to open the box now. You are not able to explain the results now. The decisions taken by the deep learning algorithm, the DL model, you are not able to, the model is not able to explain it that why it has taken. So while in the previous rule-based systems, the expert systems, the symbolic approaches, they were very good at explaining, which is missing in the today's statistical models. Can somebody from the participants recognize the three laureates on the screen? I like the participants to recognize the three laureates on the screen. Somebody please speak upon. You could raise your hand if you speak.
Hello,
Yeah.
madam. Frankly speaking, I am Dr. Dharmaya Devarpalli. I am not having idea on these three figures, madam. This is my side.
You have no idea of?
Three persons. These three
Okay,
persons.
no problem. Please go ahead. Anybody else? Today, your smartphones already have Google Lens. So try it out. Use the Google Lens in your smartphones and find out who are the three personalities out here. I can see apart from me, there are 60 plus participants in the meeting. So there may be some guy who could use the smartphone, use the Google Lens feature, click an image from the screen and find out who are the three personalities. An interactive session will always be a good session. So this is the simplest way you could do. Just click an image from your smartphone and you could write in the chat box also. So nobody. Okay, no problem. I like you to do the next further quizzes. So these three, who are these three? They are the famous Turing Award winners. What is Turing Award? It was introduced in 1966 and often called the Nobel Prize of Computing. So from left, he is LeCun, then Hinton, and then Bengio. Yoshua Bengio. I have brought many of the slides from his different talks in this presentation also for today. They have won the Turing Award in 2019 for their speeches, for their talks, for their works in the statistical models and for artificial intelligence. They are pioneers in the field. But the major question is that whether AI of today is artificial super intelligence, general intelligence, or just narrow intelligence. Is it weak AI or is it strong AI? So this is the major question we have to answer. Artificial super intelligence, all of you are aware of. What it is, an intellect that is much smarter than the best human brains. ASI is much better than the best human brains. So ASI is the superhuman. ASI seems to be far from reality for today. You all might have gone through the Terminator. You have watched Terminator, Matrix, the fictional movies. All this is strong AI, that is artificial general intelligence. The machines are becoming the humans, as we say artificial general intelligence, but weaker than artificial super intelligence. AGI is the ability to carry out tasks that a human could do. The machines with AGI are conscious, driven by emotions and self-aware. Everything what a human could do today, being done by a machine, will be called artificial general intelligence. Can anybody in the audience answer now? What is this image? If you could recognize, try to recognize any one of them. Yes, you could very well recognize the game played in the first one is chess. Who is the person? What I want to talk about? And what is the second game? Yes, please.
First person is Russian, madam. Vladimir.
He is Russian. Can you come up with the name also? The second one. Okay. Actually, these are certain examples which I have brought as the introductory for you people, because these should be very well known amongst the public who are pursuing some courses in artificial intelligence. The first picture is the IBM Deep Blue. It has conquered the world chess champion Garry Kasparov in chess. The second one is DeepMind was a company which has been taken over by Google. They have created a version for AlphaGo, and the AlphaGo of Google DeepMind has won over the world #1 Go player. He's a Chinese player. Third one, could you tell me? This is IBM Watson. IBM has prepared Watson, and it was victorious over the human champions of the TV game show Jeopardy. Then in semantic search, Google is excelling in semantic search by using its knowledge graph. You could see on the right hand side there is info box, they call it. So this is by virtue of knowledge graph. Next is digital assistant, Badu's personal digital assistant. And in China, it is even serving food. It is accepting orders in KFC restaurants. Then speech recognition applications are there, Apple Siri, Amazon Alexa. Then you have driverless cars. The most recent example is AlphaStar. This is the most recent example. It is an AI system. It has also been developed by the same company, Google's DeepMind. It has defeated the top human players of StarCraft 2 game. I don't know whether anybody of you is interested in games. It is a famous game, StarCraft 2, and a notoriously difficult real-time strategy computer game. And the top human players, PLO and Mana, AlphaStar has defeated those two. So the form of AI, actually, when I'm talking of all these 8 examples and also the AlphaStar, we actually work with in today's date. This is artificial narrow intelligence. So all these are examples of narrow intelligence. Why we say narrow? Why we say weak AI? Because they are very good, but in their own domain. They can do a very specific task only. For example, only the game of Go, only recognizing faces, or only driving a vehicle. The driverless car can only drive the car. It cannot do anything else. So this is artificial narrow intelligence. All the statistical models, the DL models, are very good at artificial narrow intelligence. So our aim is to reach AGI, to reach artificial general intelligence. And let us see how do we do it. Artificial general intelligence is narrow intelligence plus these 4 things. The machine should have the ability not for the black women, and the MIT MGH model has very accurately done mammography for both white and black women. The statistical models are highly satisfying because they are largely time consuming, they are offline, they are missing the exploratory research. Why do I say that? Because you are not able to generalize. As I said, the driverless car can only drive the car, it cannot do anything else. So you are not able to generalize. Even a system designed to play a game can only play that game. Even any other game it cannot play. So this is the major problem. That is generalization. Statistical models do not generalize correctly to new data or applications. A black box AI is a very big problem in itself. That is lack of model interpretability, lack of explainability. As I told you, more deep you go, you get more intelligent is true, but you get more black, you get more opaque models, and they're even difficult to debug. You are not able to implement human cognition, which is very important. That is, what is cognition? It is the ability to handle ambiguity, which humans do very well. The abstract conceptualization, you can say, handling the context, handling the short-term memory is there. So all this is human cognition, and statistical models fail to do so. The statistical models are stochastic. Yes, they are not deterministic. The neural network is deterministic. Once you train it, it becomes deterministic. But the training algo you provide for a neural network is in itself again stochastic. Lack of background knowledge is there. How do you say that there is lack of background knowledge? Because they do not, in fact, work upon the knowledge-based structures. They do not take the background knowledge in mind. For example, whenever you are asked in 10th standard, if you are asked to answer any question, you do have background knowledge, means whatever you have learned till date, that is always there. But when you train something for a statistical model, you just train it for one particular task. If it is 10th, then it is only 10th. So that is why these models are very brittle and easy to fool. Overfitting and underfitting is in itself a bigger problem, because you may have too many features, which is problematic. You may not have the required representative data, which is again problematic, leading to overfitting and underfitting. Statistical models, the ML and the DL models, are highly monotonic in nature. If you change some data, some data point, or anything in the model, then you need to retrain the model. Retraining is always necessary to adjust any new incoming data. The exceptions are also treated as noise by the classical ML algorithms. They miss common sense reasoning. I've already spoken about it, that they miss the common sense reasoning that even a small child has. Let us have a look on certain instances where DL has produced the unrealistic results. Have a look here. This is a famous image of a school bus. The Google Inception version 3 classifier correctly labeled the school buses, but it failed to recognize a school bus which has tipped over on its side on a snowy road. It told it as a snowplow with 0.92 accuracy. So neural networks are very easily fooled by different poses or strange poses of even the familiar objects. Look at this, another example of the adversarial. This is a text, and this text, this blue color text, you can see the blue text has been inserted in this text by intention. Intentionally it has been inserted. So it is a sample of how the adversarially inserted material can fool a large scale language model. So the reading system that interprets some sentences correctly but fails in the presence of unrealistic material which is distracting it. And this added sentence is not contradicting the correct answer. It is a correct sentence and very well in alignment with the original text, and it doesn't confuse the human, but it has confused the reading comprehension system. Again, yes, AlphaGo. AlphaGo, in fact, claim to build a Go expert without human knowledge. They claimed it, but in fact, there is a Monte Carlo tree search built in. That is the symbolic model in itself. So AlphaGo is in fact a merger though, and the famous move 78 of the Go player Lee Sedol caused a delusional behavior of AlphaGo. Because why did it happen? Because AlphaGo was not prepared, was very unprepared for the Lee Sedol's move 78. Why? Because it didn't think that a human being can ever play such a move. Then I have brought NVIDIA Dave 2. Deep Explore, is a white box testing framework for the DL systems, but it discovered an erroneous behavior in Dave 2 self-driving car platform, how the system decided to make two different decisions for the same input image, where the only difference was the brightness level. So these are some more references for you to look into, where the DL has produced unrealistic results. I re-quote Gary Marcus saying that deep learning is a terrific tool for some kinds of problems, but it is not a panacea. The deep learning is only part of the larger challenge, part of the bigger challenge of building intelligent machines. Yes, just as one technique in the complicated ensemble of techniques, but not as a. So I list here certain challenges that have come up from the limitations on the way to AGI. We have to achieve AGI. Accuracy alone is not sufficient. We require to explore ways of opening the black box of statistical models. To become conscious for the cognitive abilities, the systems would need to be able to look at the rules that humans have programmed, that were there in the rule-based systems, and we have completely ignored them in today's date. So they need to identify the inconsistencies or gaps and even report them back or discover errors in algorithms and consciously fix them without being asked. So this is what is required, and as a challenge it has come on the way. In addition to increased performance, artificial general intelligence also aims to build the trust, and this trust, I say, cannot be built up if the black box scenario keep going, and if the DL models are not able to explain the solution, then you are never able to build that trust. Now, how is this all possible? So we require to move forward from ANI to AGI. Yes, we need to move forward from the static model towards dynamic and real-time decision making. So how do we do it? For doing it, we require a hybrid of symbolic reasoning and the statistical models. For this, we need to understand what is symbolic reasoning. In traditional AI books, the Richard Knight book, all of us might have studied, or maximum of us already graduate courses. Expert systems, we call it good old-fashioned AI or the rules engine. They're the first attempts to AI. You all might have read propositional logic, branch and bound, A-star search, Lisp and Prolog. No algorithmic training is involved in these algorithms. They are very, very dynamic, verifiable, and also the explainable model. So what was the problem? Where have all these algorithms, where have the expert systems gone in today's? Why have we switched to machine learning? Why have we switched to deep learning and the statistical models? Because there were certain problems with the. Before listing the problems, have a look more on the symbolic approaches. For example, generalization is very much there. See this example, y equal to x plus 2. Y remains x plus 2 for all the numbers. If this is the program we have developed, then you could automatically generalize it, not for one number, for every number. No learning is involved, no experience is required. Independent of experience, and also no learning is required. And the symbolic manipulation is the underlying concept for all the world software in today's date, we should say. So here I have listed some of the problems with symbolic AI because of which the scientists switch to the statistical models. They are not able to imitate all the processes of human cognition. Plus, creating rules has always been time consuming because rules are created from human intervention. Again, they are also monotonic. Used alone, symbolic reasoning is monotonic reasoning, because if you add new rules, then they will not able to undo the old knowledge. Old knowledge will also remain the same. So there is always a difficulty of belief revision. There is simple grounding problem because the computers merely use syntactic rules to manipulate the symbol strings, but they do not have any understanding of what is the meaning of those. The point to emphasize here is that the symbolic reasoning is good, it is adequate, but it is adequate for reasoning only in closed systems. Again, the same as for statistical models. They are good, but they are for closed systems, small closed systems, only for a single domain, and they are not able to generalize. Here we are able to generalize, but in a limit. They do have very well-defined properties. For example, you play game of Go, you drive a car. Again, they have very well-defined properties. Unfortunately, as time passes, you have various dead ends. This is also a good example of showing a contrast between the symbolic and the statistical models that I was just speaking upon. If you might have heard of the knowledge graphs. For example, you search for Barack Obama, then there is an info box on the right. This is a Google knowledge graph. So if you use Google knowledge graph, if you use these symbolic approaches and with only the limited data, you ask who was the 44th president of the USA, the answer comes straight away Barack Obama. When you say explain why, then the answer comes see the info box, or equivalently see the knowledge graph. You will get the answer because in the info box you could find out who succeeded, who preceded, what was the term, and you can see that the answer is correct. While if you ask without the knowledge graph to the statistical models, what answer you get? Barack Obama with 71% accuracy, Donald Trump with 18% accuracy. We do not want the answer Donald Trump at all. If you ask the statistical models that explain why you get these answers, it is mum. It is not able to tell. In the sequence of contrast only, have a look on this example of AlphaGo by Google DeepMind. AlphaGo has beat the best human Go player. Its deep neural network was trained using a combination of supervised learning and also the reinforcement learning. Then came Google AlphaGo 0 in 2017, the newer version from the same company, and it is the little brother they call it. It was trained using only reinforcement learning. They say that they have not used the knowledge model. Now, because only reinforcement learning was there, it is able to beat AlphaGo with just 36 hours of training. Then they came up with AlphaZero. AlphaZero is able to learn games from scratch by playing against itself. It is able to learn and without any human assistance or hard-coded knowledge. See the beauty, AlphaZero learned to play chess, learned to play Japanese game, shogi in less than 24 hours. And I brought this example to contrast it with IBM Deep Blue. IBM Deep Blue took nearly 10 years of trial and error to develop the program that defeated Garry Kasparov in 1997. Again, there is a top-down, bottom-up contrast also between the symbolic and the statistical approaches. The symbolic approaches are highly top-down, while the statistical approaches grow bottom-up. This is also a beautiful contrast between the left mind and the right mind. The human mind has two types of systems. One is fast, one is slow. This is taken from an article from Towards Data Science. So system one is automatic. System one is automatic and it uses similarity with past experience, whatever knowledge has been accumulated in mind to get a decision. While system two is effortful. It uses high-level reasoning to get the decisions. System one is intuitive. Intuitive in the sense that if you tell a lie, your mother can automatically get it without doing any reasoning. The mothers know that you are lying. So this is being intuitive, which is system one. That is very fast and intuitive. The stereotypical, you could say. This is exactly how the current DL does quite well. This is using the system one. while the system 2 is counterintuitive. And this is exactly the classical symbolic AI, the expert systems of the old tenure, they were trying to do. Now we need to combine both the systems. The hybrid model, we call it contextual computing also. It combines machine intelligence with human intelligence. The hybrid model is able to generalize, and it is excellent at perceiving, learning, and reasoning with minimal supervision. So what we learned till now is that the hybrid model should be used to overcome the problems of the only statistical models and the only symbolic approaches. So we require to train our computers. What to train? To what taxonomies or terminologies or knowledge organization systems or vocabularies to use as background knowledge. So we need to train our computer that from where to get the background knowledge, and we need to train them to explain their recommendations, decisions, or results. Otherwise, with only DL, we are very good. We are making very good models. Just to add these two things, and it will become better. For example, say we add one rule. If earthquake 121 has location 521 and has magnitude M, and magnitude is greater than 7 and less than 8, then this earthquake needs action this, needs action this. So they say this is a rule added to the system. Now for computers to make reasoning, for computers to reason, the words describing the objects of interest. For example, what is the object of interest here? Earthquake 121. As an instance, it is coming. That is the object of interest. Its properties like has location, has magnitude. Also the values of the properties like 521 and M, as well as the relationships between the properties, all have to be accurately defined in a system. This is the crux of the problem, that all these things have to be accurately defined within a system, and that system is called the knowledge organization system. That is the taxonomy or the terminology I've stated here. So in the hybrid approach, to make a truly hybrid approach, what we need to do, we are let us consider ourselves that we are very good at deep learning, we are very good at machine learning algos, and we train our models in a good manner. Now what to be added? The two things I propose, that we need to train our computers to which background knowledge you should use, and also how you can explain the decisions that you are giving. So for all these, the semantic technologies we could use, because semantic technologies are the today's symbolic approach. And for the same thing, for the hybrid approach only, again the same laureates have said what Andrew Ng says, the skill is in designing the hybrid. Geoffrey Hinton says that deep learning will be used as a kind of low-level servant to provide with what they need to make their symbolic reasoning work. Gary Marcus says that we need to bring together symbol manipulation, which has a strong history in AI, with deep learning. So the premise being put up in this talk is backed up by various researchers from from several cognitive scientists. This is a proposal by God et al. About the knowledge infused learning. They say that the learning algorithms, learning models have to be infused with knowledge. Now, to what level do you infuse knowledge? It depends whether you are doing a shallow infusion or a semi-deep infusion or a deep infusion. If you say shallow infusion of knowledge graphs to improve the semantic and conceptual processing of data, otherwise what you could do, a deeper and congruent incorporation of the knowledge graphs. Otherwise, you could combine a stratified representation of the abstract levels. Let us see how in detail. To some extent, shallow infusion, look at this beautiful architecture, what they have presented. Say you do, this is the general scenario how you work. You have input data set, you have a deep learning model, and then you get an output. Now, what they say is, when we say that the knowledge is to be infused in a shallow manner, then the self-aware external knowledge will enrich the data set. Just it will be used to enrich the data set. When we say that it is semi-deep infusion,
Madam,
then
madam,
yeah. Hello.
so, madam, sorry for disturbance. Can you take water, madam? Actually, your voice, some little bit quality is decreasing, madam. Sorry for
Okay.
interruption. Okay.
Okay. How? Fine. So let us hold for 2 to 3 minutes.
That is as you wish, madam. You
Yeah. Please hold on for 2 to 3 minutes and I'll be back. I like the participants to raise certain queries if they have, because I have covered the half part of the presentation. That is the hybrid approach. Now I'll be going towards what are semantic technologies and how do we utilize them. So I like if the participants will like to ask something.
Madam, this is Swati from SVCW.
Yes, please.
I somehow missed that track that you said these no expert systems have somewhere came to saturation point where machine learning and deep learning has taken over. Can I know the reason why? If you have already covered it, can you please repeat it?
Yeah. Actually, what it was before. To be precise, or it is the years are always vague. Otherwise, it is 1980s onwards that people realized the problems in the expert systems, the problems in the rule-based reasoning, the problems in the symbolic approaches. And here I listed in one of the slides, these are the problems in the symbolic reasoning approaches, because of which there was an era of machine learning, and it is running till now, and it will go beyond also. Because, and out of all these 4 problems that I have listed, the major is the learning. The machines are not able to learn. Learning was completely missing in expert systems. Whatever they have been made for, they do that task. For example, you could see this monotonicity. If you make the system learn, if you add more rules, then the belief revision was not able to be done. That is why machine learning approaches came, the DL models came to make it better. And now after the ML has come, the research became more scientific, because now you are able to quantify your results in the terms of precision and recall. As ML has come, now people are not able to go back to expert systems. This is the drawback. Am I able to answer?
Yes, ma'am.
You
Can I
understand
say
that?
that expert systems are actually hard coded? Can we call them they were actually hard coded? The rules are already predefined, so that's why they are not able to learn new things. I mean,
Yeah. No, it is not that is why they are not able to learn new things. Yes, the rules are hard coded. The human have to write the rules. The human have to create the knowledge and write it. For example, you might have heard in Lisp and Prolog, they
Yes.
work with only facts and rules.
Yes,
The
yes.
human beings have to write, the coder has to write the facts and rules, and based upon those rules only the inferencing is done. So there is no learning component.
Okay.
There
Thank
is
you.
no learning component. This is the problem. If you add new rules, adding new rules, what happens? The old knowledge is not able to retract. While in machine learning, they're also monotonic. But the problem is, good thing is, you can retrain them for the new knowledge. And the bad thing is, retraining is required.
Yes, yes.
If you can appreciate this fact which I'm saying.
So can we call no, machine learning is better than expert systems?
No. I'm not saying that machine learning is better. Both are doing their own. Even I have some more slides. Maybe you get it better with time.
Yeah.
For example, that is why I've shown you the contrast between the two. You understand it from here.
Yeah.
One is fast mind, one is slow mind. The right one is machine learning. The right one is symbolic approach, the expert system.
Okay.
The first one is machine learning, DL.
Okay.
System one is DL.
Okay.
For example, when you lie, your mother say, oh, you have lied. The mother has not applied any rules. The mother has not applied any reasoning.
Yeah.
The mother is automatically replying because the mother has learned it. That is in her that you are lying. So this
Yes.
is fast. This is being unconsciously she is replying.
Yeah.
The DL algorithms are such algorithms, while the expert systems are slow because they do reason.
Okay.
One more example, please. I like to quote one more example. Say you are translating language 1 to language 2. You
Okay.
give it to both the systems, to expert system and to a machine learning system. What will expert system do? You can contrast it yourself. If you just try to speak, how will expert system translate one page from language A to language B? What will it do?
Maybe it would be applying some grammatical rules or something like that.
Yes, there will be some rules which are hard coded already
Yes, yes.
for translation from language A to language B. Now you are giving the paper to it, the facts you are giving. Now it will apply rules and translate, right? It
Yes.
means it has a dictionary with it. It will go in the dictionary for every word. It will translate and do it for you, right? Now, so it will take time. It is slow, the system too. While if it is machine learning, how it will do? You will already train the ML system. You will prepare a model of learning. You will prepare an ML model which can translate language 1 to language 2.
Yes, yes.
And then when it will come to real testing, you will just provide a page and it will within flicker of second it will translate.
Yes.
Okay, but there are certain drawbacks of ML models which I've already listed. So because of those drawbacks, accuracy is good, but the ML model will not be able to explain the DL model will not be able to explain how it has done the translation. Do you understand that?
Yes, yes.
The DL model will not explain how it has done the translation, while the expert system can explain by going back. It will tell you that which rules it has applied for doing the translation.
Yeah, yeah, that is the major advantage of having expert systems. It can backtrack and tell us the reason.
Yes. That is why the today's researchers are saying that go to contextual computing, go to the hybrid approach.
Yeah.
Just merge both of them. So for merging both of them, these are the two things which are required now. The ML models are very good. The DL models are very good at learning. What they are missing is you need to apply the taxonomies as background knowledge. Now they should explain the recommendations. Now, how will you recommend? How will the DL models recommend? We have to teach them. We have to train them how to recommend. This is the future research.
So as Andrew NG said, are we right now seeing the hybrid approaches where expert systems features and deep learning?
Yes, they are on the way, and I have brought many slides as examples for you people. Let me proceed, right?
Yeah.
Okay, anybody, any other query for the time being? Please go ahead so that you could understand the next slides. I will appreciate any other queries if there are any of anyone. Okay, not for now. So let me proceed further.
Madam, here one more decision system which we are preparing is completely AI based, right?
Is completely
AI based techniques, right?
AI based technique, right?
Yeah, and now what I'm asking, if I want to replace AI as some fuzzy inference mechanism, so you are designing an expert system, nothing but a decision making system. Is it possible, madam?
I think I didn't understand your query well. What is possible?
Now,
Yeah, designing a fuzzy inference system is very much possible.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. AI is no relevant to fuzzy, right? AI is completely soft technique.
No. This is everything is artificial intelligence. All of these are AI systems only. If you are doing a decision support, you are providing recommendation, or you are providing a fuzzy inference. Everything is artificial intelligence now, because you are teaching machine to do anything. Your speech recognition, your voice, your image recognition, neural nets, everything is artificial intelligence.
Okay, thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yes, please. So I was telling you that shallow infusion, you are inducing knowledge only inside the data set. In semi-deep infusion, you are infusing the external knowledge in the DL algo also. The DL model also, you are using the background knowledge somehow. When we talk of deep infusion, then in every layer, you are using the stratified knowledge in every layer of the DL model. So I have brought certain examples where the hybrid is already there. So this is what you were asking. Let us see. Google search engine. It is using DL. The transformers, it is using the technique for sequence transduction. And also it is using the symbol manipulation systems. That is the knowledge graph navigation tools. So it is combining the state of the art. AlphaGo, it is also taking both the things. I previously told it. Then the neurosymbolic concept learner, it is a very beautiful example of the hybrid approach developed by the researchers at MIT and IBM. What they have done is they have evaluated their concept learner over the visual question answering problems for the clever dataset, and again with 99.8 accuracy and with very less training part. This is the beauty. Again, there are explainable results. So let us have a look on it, how they are doing it. This is a model architecture of the neurosymbolic concept learner. See, they're doing it in three parts. for the clever scenario, this is part 1, the scene parsing, part 2, question parsing, and then the final program execution. So for this clever data set, what it is doing, they are having a CNN. This CNN is processing the input image into object segments. The input image is processed into object segments, and then these object segments are passed to a CNN. They are passed to a CNN and created a structured scene representation. You can see here the structured representation for every image that is found in the input image. Size, shape, material, color, the XYZ coordinates. Then you have a second neural network. You can see here this LSTM encoder. It parses the question that is given. For example, in this sample image, you could see the question is how many cubes that are behind the cylinder are large. The answer is 3 because all the 3 cubes are large. So this question is being passed by another neural network. It is passed into a rule-based program. You see this output, it is a rule-based program. The clever data set consists of many thousand questions, many thousand images, and this rule-based program for each and every question and an answer to every question. So you could also take example of from here and try to prepare a hybrid data set. This is the simplest approach that has been done so far. Now after this program has been created, you could see how many cubes that are behind the cylinder are large. So see, the first statement is filter the shape. Find out means find out the cylinders. Then relate the word behind. Then again find out the shape cube. Then size, because they have to be large. The cubes have to be large. And then you count them. So when you run this program over this structured representation of objects, finally you are able to get the answer 3. This symbolic program, which has been created by this second neural network, it operates upon the object segments created from the image in a traditional rule-based manner, and you get an answer 3. So this is a beautiful example of the hybrid approach. So if
Madam, mathematics is not covered, madam. Mathematics.
Mathematics is not covered.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it is very much there because CNN is operating upon mathematics only, and finally you are getting the structured representation.
Correct only that mathematics. What is the cost function which you are using for using only this alone rules and this values of optimization values? For that cost function only, it is suitable, right? Without cost function or without that mathematics, we understand this table cannot come.
Yeah, that is true. Actually, this is one of the scenarios. That is, here for executing, they have used the rule-based approach. Otherwise, this is a very, very simple approach actually that has been used to show the hybrid of the two. Otherwise, what you could do is, for example, finally you could see the third step. Here is the rule-based approach, but what you could do is, finally you could use the DL, a neural network or a neuro-fuzzy approach you could use in the final step, and knowledge graphs you could use as background knowledge. When I come to it, I hope it will be a better understanding. So we could hold this for some time. Have a look here. If you are using only the isolated technologies, as I just said, either only DL or the symbolic approaches, then the major problems you encounter are scalability, and if you understand the device and data interoperability, it is a big problem. Look here, this input image, it has all types of data, and this is one type of image. Maybe you get some other type of image. Maybe you get data in JSON. Maybe you get data in CSV format. So the major problem is the data interoperability, and for IoT devices, it is device interoperability. If you use the semantic technologies or the symbolic approaches, then this interoperability problem goes away. We will just see how. even the facilitating reusability of applications, and the major one is of course the semantic gap. How does this semantic gap comes in? Because the data which is captured maybe from the various IoT devices is low level data. The data is low level in nature. So there exists a semantic gap between the smart spaces and the higher level abstraction, the higher level concept that users are interested in. So this the meaning has to be specified, which is not there. So the semantic technologies have come as the game changer, and these semantic technologies are the modern implementations of those expert systems of the symbolic approaches to AI. And this has come into picture from the developments that have been taken in the semantic web. If you use semantic technologies, then you will be getting the better data quality. Data as a service. Why I say data as a service? Because you might have heard of the term linked data or linked open data cloud, LOD cloud. So that LOD, linked open data, could be used as the background data as a service. You are getting better data governance and also the stewardship. And because there is no need to use the big data warehouses now. RDF is that technology, that is the resource description framework. Using RDF, what you could do is it facilitates data merging from various heterogeneous sources even, and the heterogeneous sources could stay as data lake in their own position. You do not need to bring the complete data in a big data warehouse. You just use the RDF versions of those data lakes and you could interoperate over it. The semantic technologies fuse the symbolic and the sub-symbolic approaches. We have already covered it. They ensure an agile approach. What do we say when we say agile approach? That is the diffusion of the top-down and the bottom-up strategies. A beautiful thing. And again, no ambiguity is there. So data scientists need semantic technologies in today's date to achieve AGI. Here is a list of certain semantic technologies, the major ones which are generally used. You could see here, starting from the year 1988 till 2014, I have mentioned, most of the technologies have already been matured till 2014, and now different versions keep coming. That is a different concept. You could see the base layer of foundation technologies, Unicode, HTTP, HTML, then URI, IRI for the international characterization. Then various serializations exist. People have worked with XML, but instead of XML, various different formats for HTML, RDFA, micro formats, JSON LD are very much portable formats. The data model, RDF, is the standard for semantic technologies. That is a resource description framework. Then came NoSQL revolution was there. From SQL, people were shifting to NoSQL. Even the Facebook has Cassandra database. It is the NoSQL version. The highest layer is for inferencing. That is the major full-fledged languages are there. RDFS is the first of them. That is the schema added to RDF. In RDF, we do have the data sets, while the schema of those data sets is represented in the form of RDFS. RDFS is the schema language for RDF, you could say. Then you have RML, OWL, SWRL is the rule language, the semantic web rule language, because as we are saying that these are the modern implementation of the symbolic approaches. So you are writing rules even here, and for those rules to run, you require SWRL. Then OWL have different flavors, different versions, OWL 1.1, OWL 2. Next, you could see Sparkle. This is also very interesting and very important because in RDF, in RDB database, relational databases, you used to work with SQL. And Sparkle is just like SQL. SQL works upon structured tabular data, while Sparkle works upon knowledge graphs. To be specific, I should say Sparkle works upon RDF data. And we have already specified that the data model is to be RDF. For semantic technologies, to bring its power to be effective, we say that you should convert all your data into RDF for it to be interoperable. To remove the problem of heterogeneity, you should convert all your data into RDF. And after your data is in RDF, the stewardship problem in itself goes. You do not need to create the big data warehouses. You could keep the RDF data sets at their own data lakes, and you are very well able to interoperate them by working with any of the ontology languages, RDFS or OWL, the rule languages, SWRL, the query languages, Sparkle, and so on. So this is a time span from 1988 to 2014 that I have brought here in this slide. So you see the cost of operation and the syntactic flexibility. When you go down, you get the syntactic flexibility, but as you go up, you get efficiency, effectiveness. Semantics are more, expressiveness is more as you go up. OWL is the most expressive as you go up, but the computational complexity also increases and the reasoning capability also increases. To emphasize upon the beauty of only the semantic technologies, consider this example scenario. Say Professor X want to organize an FDP with me or anyone as a co-coordinator. So we two of us need to coordinate with ourselves because both of us may be at different geographical location. So we need discussion upon date, duration, topic, expert, and funding sources. If we induce semantic technologies in place, then what will the ST agent do? The semantic technology agent will have access to all the information about Professor X, and the another ST agent will have access to all the information about me. So these two agents may communicate and automate the decision making by either inferring the facts from existing facts and data. So the semantic technology agents at both the ends could automate the task and hence provide artificial intelligence. This is also very important, as I mentioned here, the open world assumption. The semantic technologies provides a semantic, flexible, interconnected, and more transparent data model. Why? Because of the open world assumption. What is open world assumption? It states that if we don't know something, it doesn't mean that it is false. So I repeat, if we don't know something, there is something new which is to come in the world, because the real world is sporadic. So you cannot assume it to be false in today's date. While both the systems in themselves were working with closed world assumption, semantic technology is work with OWA. There is always a room of new facts in contrast with what relational databases used to work. Now there is no need to identify all the required data ahead of time. While in RDB, what was there? Changing the basic elements in a relational database, we need to incorporate the new facts is often difficult. So the semantic technologies provide an advantage of time, cost, and maintainability. And they are in addition compatible with the existing technologies stack also. If you remember the learning slide, I told that two things we need to train our models to. One is the knowledge organization system, the taxonomy, and another is the explanations we need to come in. So for the background knowledge part, we have various ontology variants available, and all of them are arguably interpreted as ontologies in one manner or the other. There are varying form of appearance, scope, degree of formality. For example, based on appearance, we can call it a semantic network, we can call it a frame or a set of logical formulas. Based on the language used, as we have just seen in the previous slide, you could use RDF, OWL, or some other. Based on the scope, we can say that we are using an upper level ontology or a domain ontology. When I say upper level, then it means it is a general ontology, a general vocabulary that can be used for multiple domains. Then you can have domain ontologies or some application specific ontology, or some language ontology, the lexical resource. Based on the degree of formality, you can say that either you are using a thesauri or you are using a simple concept scheme like FOAF, the friend of a friend, or a taxonomy, you say it. Then vocabulary, the conceptual data models, UML and EER we used to use previously. So they are also a form of knowledge organization system. Knowledge graph, as I've already stated, is a beautiful semantic data model. We represent knowledge graphs in the form of resource description framework, RDF, and this is the term introduced by Google. For their semantic search, they initially called it a knowledge graph. So knowledge graphs are a large network of entities. Their semantic types also, properties also, and most importantly, I emphasize the relationships between the entities are also mentioned in knowledge graphs. There are certain examples of general purpose knowledge graphs. The people working in semantic technologies are very much aware of what is Wikidata, DBpedia, ConceptNet, Yago. There are very famous and general purpose knowledge graphs. Certain domain specific knowledge graphs, I have brought an example from the healthcare domain. SNOMED, CT, UMLS are the most common. ICD-10 also people use. So these are health specific domain knowledge graphs. We could use them as background knowledge. So to have a better view of what is a knowledge graph, I have brought an example in front of you. Say you need to search for Tim Berners-Lee. Then Google search or any search engine, we expect it to bring the information from the different places. For example, if it brings from DBpedia, it has some other information. If it brings from Wikidata, it has some other information. So have a look. It has brought this search engine has brought different information from different places. It has brought this information about his marriage. Look from DBpedia. From DBpedia, it has brought information about the two spouses, that is Rosemary Leith and Nancy Carlson, from DBpedia. About the children, that he has two children, Tim Berners-Lee. And from Wikidata, it has brought information about his sibling, The Voice, residence, New Hampshire, USA. So finally, it has created a knowledge graph from two different sources. Actually, humans do not think in the form of tables. Understanding graphs is more natural and it matches the human-like thinking. That's why machines also have to be taught to work with knowledge graphs, because it is more reasonable than working with tables. So the learning is that you need to build a rich user experience by combining knowledge regarding the input keyword from multiple sources. We recommend that you use semantic web knowledge graphs for augmenting the ML problems with background knowledge. Have a look here as an example. Say you get data from different sources, from different maybe IoT devices in different formats. You need to transform and clean the data and prepare a knowledge graph over it. Now you could run any algorithm over it to be used by any intelligent application. Now the problem is, the question is how to create this knowledge graph and how to create the common schema for the knowledge graph. How to create a common schema model to make sure that the common tag name will be used among different parties. So this is called an ontology. Ontologies can help to address this issue. Look at this example. Some people call it the symbolic data science also, the knowledge data science. Again, an example of how the hybrid approach is working. You get the documents, the unstructured documents. Now you have some stored knowledge also in the form of knowledge graphs. Maybe the upper knowledge graphs also, or upper ontologies you could use. Then what you are doing is, have a look, you are extracting the documents, generating the knowledge from the documents, but in addition, you are using the background knowledge. You could annotate the document and then finally create the indices. What is end user doing? He is analyzing, he is predicting, classifying, optimizing. All the learning algorithms have been written, and he could also directly process the query using Sparkle because the data is already stored. Knowledge graphs are used for link prediction, for relation extraction, for question answering, for recommendation systems. I think I'm running short of time, so I could skip it for the time being and we could come back. Yes, this is I like to cover. It is a beautiful slide, a good example of the hybrid approach of semantic technologies. Look at this blue part. It is the complete traditional approach. How do we do it? Input comes, then you have the trained DL model, and then you get the output, either classification, regression, whatever you wish to do. Now, how to do the hybrid of two is, you have semantic technologies, knowledge graphs, and ontologies lying here in the orange block, and you do a knowledge matching. You do a knowledge matching of the input also, the hidden layer also, and the output also, depending upon whether you are doing a shallow infusion, a semi-deep, or a deep infusion, as I already stated. Then the third part is this red one, that is the explanations. You could do query and reasoning mechanisms over the stored knowledge graphs and ontologies to generate the final explanations. And even one utility of knowledge graphs in DL is also to provide the relative importance score. That is, these knowledge graphs can also provide weighing to the models. They can also provide weight to the learnable features for the interpretation of outcomes also. Semantic technologies are used in various domains, various fields, and there are two major scenarios. I should say that they can be applied to enterprises also, and they can be applied to the public web also. So very quickly, I will go through the different case studies. In life sciences, people are using biomedical ontologies. In life sciences is the best example of the utilization of semantic technologies. The biomedical ontologies are the maximum number of ontologies on the LOD cloud. In media management, BBC, Times Inclusive, Elsevier, Springer, all of them are using the ontologies for storing, sorting, and presenting media. Then web search and e-commerce, Best Buy, Yahoo Search Monkey, all of them are using the Open Graph protocol that is similar to RDF. Facebook is using the Open Graph protocol. The Google, Yahoo, and Microsoft are doing the same thing with schema.org. And many e-commerce sites today are using the good relations as the product ontology. In supply chain management, Biogen IDEC Inclusive is using the semantics. Then information integration in oil and gas field, it is there. For wearables in smartwatches, you are using as background knowledge. Smart city examples are there. The town of Cary in North Carolina has installed wireless water meters to get access to the water in the city, and the water usage, to track the water usage online and helping them in a proactive manner. In smart industry, the Volvo trucks and the Mack trucks, smart home, office buildings, then various utilities, even in sports and humanitarian events, the Special Olympic World Games at Abu Dhabi 2019 utilize the semantic technologies for their events. Fleet management, autonomous vehicles, Tesla is using in its autopilot systems. This I'll have to skip. In COVID-19 also, for COVID-19 also, various heterogeneous data sets about COVID-19 are available, and Graphs for Good 2020 links various heterogeneous data sets into one combined data set that could be used as background knowledge. In classification, you could use ontologies as background knowledge to improve the ML classification always. This is a beautiful work done in 2019. The CSO classifier, what they are doing is they are classifying the research papers. You could see from as input, you can pass the abstracts of different papers, and it will classify it into the terminologies, so that you are able to do the reviewer assignment, the expert assignment to papers which match these technologies. In AIoT field, semantic technologies are doing a pretty good role. Otherwise, we were using HyperCat Data Hub to store the data in the relational databases. What this author has done is he has devised a HyperCat ontology to capture the semantics of HyperCat, and also provided the Sparkle SQL endpoint to query the data. Other options could be, instead of devising this HyperCat ontology, you could convert the data of the HyperCat Data Hub from the relational databases to the RDF triple stores even, or to JSON LD. This is what has been done by another author, extending the previous work. This is also a very beautiful example of contextual modeling by, again, the same authors, Amit Sheth and Marcus Gore in 2019, the knowledge infused learning. And what the beauty here is that because various groups have different types of feelings, and they may have different meanings for different texts, then you could have very different dimension specific corpus you could have, and the word2 vector you could use to create the different representation of the corpus or the data, input data, and then do whatever learning classification task you want to do. And for this, the traditional representation approaches always fail. For example, the Islamic extremists and the Islamic moderate, they reflect different contextual dimensions. They have ambiguity in meaning when you want to get the meaning of the word jihad. It is also an extended version of the same example, which I could explain if I could have more time. So this way, I finish my talk with a few.
Dear participants, let us wait for a couple of minutes. Let's see if ma'am rejoins.
I hope I was disconnected.
Yes, ma'am. Now it's fine. You can
Okay, I don't know where was I when I was disconnected. How long back?
It's just 2 minutes back.
The key takeaways, ma'am. Takeaways.
Okay, okay, then it is fine. So we were at the end. So this is the bibliography. Thank you so much. If you have any questions and comments, most welcome.
Participants, you are open for queries.
Yeah, you could always unmute your mic and ask.
Ma'am, this is Swati again.
Yes,
I
please.
don't know how far this question makes sense for others, but let me ask this question. If a person who is completely new to this field but yet very much interested in pursuing research in this area, do we have any roadmap or any other kind of suggestions from your side? Can I know, please? Ma'am, can you please unmute your mic?
Yeah, suggestions can be many, but to start with, what you could do is there are many software available which you could start with. For example, the step one will be you first of all download Protege. Protege is a tool for developing ontologies and knowledge graphs.
Please spell it,
And
ma'am.
pardon?
Can you please spell it if you don't mind?
Yeah, Protege, Protege, Protege.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, and just write down few more keywords and what was there in on my last slide. Try to work upon these. Yeah, these keywords. Just learn about what are these keywords and you how to work upon these keywords, and you could get it. Even that slide of semantic technologies, the table I have presented.
Yes.
Look into it and you will get a start. Otherwise, you could always contact me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you could start with RDF, OWL, Sparkle. Just develop a very small ontology in Protege of any domain and try to query it using Sparkle as we do it with databases. And it's really very simple to work with semantic technologies and very interesting also.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
If anybody else, any query, I will be happier to address it.
Well, participants, if you don't have any queries, let me mark the end of the session. Let's look for one more minute. Maybe what if we can get more questions? Ma'am, please unmute your mic, ma'am.
I'm again sorry for that. So the participants could write in the chat box even if you have any query to ask. And otherwise, I am open for email also. You could talk to me later on. It's not like the relationship is over after the FDP is over. So you could ping me anytime whenever you feel anything, at least from the presentation of today. If you want to ask anything, you people are most welcome.
Well, thank you so much, ma'am, for that big picture, yet a very detailed walk through the semantic web technologies. Somebody is trying to talk. Let me take a pause. Is there anybody trying to talk? No. Okay.
Maybe by mistake.
That's really no. You really shed some light on like what goes beyond machine learning and deep learning. That's very informative, ma'am. That's very enlightening speech. Thank you so much. And we are once again very much glad to have you here with us, ma'am. And we hope we'll continue this relationship of knowledge sharing in the future too.
Yeah, thank you so much. I am also delighted to be a part of this FDP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I think I leave the session now.
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Thank you. Well, that marks the end of the course of the day. Tomorrow's session starts at 10 in the morning The link can be seen on the WhatsApp group. Have a great evening. Bye everyone.